Welcome. You're listening to How I Did That, a storytelling podcast. Let's jump into today's episode.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Archer. I'm the founder of Rootstrong. I'm also the author of Fly Dr. Fly, and I'm so grateful to be here and so excited to be here.
So, Lindsay, tell us about your background.
So I graduated from Wayne State University in May of 2019. I graduated with my degree in African American Studies on the pre-med track. So I'm still on that pre-med journey. And I graduated this year with my master's in business administration with a focus in healthcare administration. So now I'm kind of in this limbo period, waiting to kind of on this journey still towards medical school. And yeah, so I'm officially on my real gap year right now. My parents are both born and raised up until they were about 15, 16 years old in Jamaica. And so my Jamaican heritage has a lot to do with kind of just how I see the world, how I've grown up and everything. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
Okay, so that is so exciting. You said you just completed your MBA.
I just finished June 13th was the official day. So it was about spring of 2019, I want to say, or early, maybe winter. So like February, I was kind of like, I've always wanted to get my master's because my mom, she went back and got her master's degree, her MBA, same exact degree, MBA in healthcare administration the year prior, or the same year. So we graduated at the same time last year. So I got my bachelor's degree. She got her master's degree the day after me. So that really, seeing her in that process for 2 years really inspired me. And I think that's really what kind of inspired me to want to pursue that. Just seeing all the things she was learning, not just about business, but really about healthcare and how to run a practice, which is something I want to do when I become a doctor. So I thought that might be valuable to do during this time of me trying to get into medical school, just get my degree in healthcare administration in the meantime. So I think she's really the one that inspired me to pursue that, and especially going back to school, being, already a mother, a wife, and all these different things. It was really inspiring. So I was like, if she can do it, I can do it. And thankfully I was able to do it within 11 months, I think. They had a fast track program, so I was able to do it within 11 months.
Was it at Wayne State?
No, it was actually an online program, which was really great because it was a lot more flexible through a university called Mount Vernon Nazarene University in Ohio. So that was really, really helpful for me because it was a different, learning experience having to do everything online, especially being a graduate program. But it was definitely something that in the end kind of paid off, being that now we're in this pandemic and everything is online. So that transition for me really wasn't too drastic during this, the beginning of everything in March and April when, coronavirus was really kicking off here in the Midwest area. So
was that one of the only schools that offered it online, that specific program?
Yes, and I think that's why I didn't do too much looking outside of what my mom had already done, just because I'd already known that her course load was really rigorous, so I knew I was going to be challenged. But also it being online, I was like, this is one, affordable, because tuition is a lot, and I definitely want to save up as much as I can for medical school. And so it was reasonable, and also on top of that, it was just a really good school, and it being online, it was just a lot easier for me, especially during the time because I actually started the program last year, like the day before I went to Jamaica to build the libraries. So it was a little bit, a lot going on at one time, but it was really nice to be able to go and build the library, but also be able to do my schoolwork online and not have to worry about missing class had I been in class or at an actual, institution in class. So.
Oh wow, that's for sure very flexible, because having to attend class for another whole year, it's like you can't really do anything outside of that except in the evenings maybe. I wanted to focus on the school that you mentioned, during your program, you were able to have the flexibility to go to Jamaica and build the library. That's a really big undertaking. How did you decide to do that?
So my mom was born and raised in a small rural community in Jamaica called Glengoff. And it's a mountainside community. It's really, really, way up in the hills. And so a lot of the children there, even though, so many generations have passed, don't have access to, literary resources. The closest library at the time, before these libraries was about an hour away. So, a lot of kids in that community, they don't have access to vehicles. They don't have access to, there's already a financial burden that goes along with traveling that far. So really the big thing for me was with Root Strong really is giving back to the places that kind of make me who I am in a way. And, really focusing particularly on the youth, because I feel that when you can really start with impacting the youth, that changes everything for that community for generations to come. So my mom grew up a lot without a lot of access to books and things like that, and that circumstance is still a thing that's very real in that community. So every single summer since I was a child, like, we've always gone back to Jamaica. I've always gone back to that community, and I've kind of just seen how things have kind of remained the same throughout the years. And so one day, I think about 3 years ago, my mom and I were just talking and just randomly talking about how we wanted to, one day, somewhere like maybe like 30 years from now or something, I don't know, build a library in Jamaica. Hopefully when I have, when I'm a doctor and I can finally afford to, do such a big undertaking. But somehow I don't really know what it was. I think we came across a video of the school that my mom had went to as a kid, her primary school. And the video just so happened to be of the principal talking about how they needed a library, how the kids don't have access to books, how, the infrastructure of the school was really, really struggling. And so we saw this and we were like, you know what, we could actually do this. And so in 2018, it started off as just a little free library. Have you ever seen those? The little free libraries.
The ones on the side of the road where it's like, take a book.
Yeah, take a book and like leave a book or something like that. Yeah, so it's like you take one, you leave one. So we were gonna do that because we were like, a library right now is a little, a little much. We don't know if we could actually handle that. So we we had a little free library built, and we made sure that it was, made by people within the community, so that we're also employing people within the community. And we built that in 2018, stocked it with like a bunch of books. And then right after we left during that trip, we were like, you know what, a library would be really nice. So we were looking at the school grounds, and luckily they had a room that looked like, we could really turn that into a library. And so for the rest of the year, up until June, July of 2019, we were planning to build this library, collecting books, trying to get the word out, and really trying to make this a community thing, not only in Jamaica, but here in America as well, to kind of bring this thing together to actually build the library.
Wow. So were you living in Jamaica at the time you were doing the little free library as well? And then you were still...
No. Actually, no, so every year we'll go down for maybe like a week or so. And so really it was just, we were literally there for just like 2 weeks in 2018, and we did the little free library.
Oh, so did you go?
And that was it. And then 2019, when we came back to build the actual libraries, we were there for, we went with the idea, and then we, had people in the community make the little free library. And then we, did all that. We're able to present it to the school during their graduation. And then we came back. And then 2019, during the summertime, we were able to be there again for another 2 weeks. And we brought some people here who wanted to be a part of the outreach trip. And we put on that entire thing. And literally, I think we built the 2 libraries in a week and a half, which was way beyond what we could have ever expected.
So the first time when you decided to do the free library, did you go to Jamaica for those 2 weeks knowing like these are the intentions, we intend to like collect all the books, get all the people employed, do all this? Like did you pre-plan it, or it kind of just struck while you were there?
No, that was actually pre-planned. So we had already like maybe in May. So I think we went down in 2018 in June, July, end of June, early July. And it was back in maybe like April, May that we were you know, like, oh, we want to do this little free library. And we figured that, you know, it's a little free library. It's going to take maybe like, 50 books, hopefully, to fit inside the library. So we figured we could collect those books. And so we definitely did plan it a little bit coming into it. But yeah, it was definitely planned. I don't think we could have pulled it off. You know, just being in Jamaica, and then, you know, there's a thing in Jamaica as well where, you know, Jamaicans actually, it's always a funny thing. And I think the people who came on the outreach trip last year, they kind of learned that very quickly, that Jamaica is very much so on island time. So if you have a plan, you know, you really have to make sure you plan it out way before time, because, you know, you go to Jamaica and it's not really like here in, you know, the North America, where in Canada and in the United States, we're kind of like, you know, we say we want to do something, there's like a time, we want to do it within a certain amount of time. In Jamaica, it's a little bit more laid back, you know, things take a little bit more time. So we definitely had to go down with a plan.
So this library like a room inside the actual school?
So the thing about the school is that it's actually not one entire school. It's kind of like a compound, I guess. So you have one schoolhouse, and that schoolhouse has actually been there since my mom was a child. So it's kind of like, imagine like a wooden barrack kind of thing. So that's how the schoolhouse looks. And they'll just separate each grade by like these huge mobile blackboards. So, you know, grade 4, 5, and 6 will all be in this one building, this one schoolhouse, but each grade is just separated by these mobile blackboards. So that's the schoolhouse. There's no room for a library in there, but there was another like adjacent building that was out of use, but it was damaged. So a lot of the kids, they couldn't enter the building because it was a safety hazard. So they were really using it just as storage. And we were planning on using that building as a library. That was the building we were like, you know what, this is going to be the library. And we had all these plans for using that particular building. But it turned out that maybe like 2 months before we actually went down to build the library last year, you know, we had people on the ground like telling us, you know, this building it's not safe. Like, even if we were to, you know, renovate it and fix it, it's not going to be safe for the kids. So we had to go down again just before July, which is when we actually built the library. We went down in June, and we kind of looked like, you know, where else can we build this library? And luckily they had a building that had 2 upper rooms and 1 lower room. So 1 room on the first floor and 2 rooms on the upper floor. And that ended up becoming the library. So the 2 rooms upstairs were split into the little kids library, and the young adults, or, you know, tween library, I guess. And then the first floor became the computer lab that we built.
Wow. So
yeah.
Okay, how far was this second building that you found from the main school?
So it's a really small like school compound compared to like what we have here in the US. So it was a lot. It wasn't far at all. It was literally, the schoolhouse is like right in the middle. You have the old library that we wanted to build in, which was like to the far right. And then to the far left, you have this building that we ended up building the actual libraries in. So it was actually like, you know, pretty much equal distance to this new library compared to the old library.
How did Root Strong play a role in all of this? Because I know that that's a nonprofit organization. So did you decide to, you know, make this organization before you built the libraries, or during that time you were like, oh, this, like, I should make an organization so I can do more, people can join it? Like, how did that come about?
So back in 2015, that's when Root Strong, like right when I finished high school, I always wanted to like start a nonprofit. And I always realized that, you know, to do like these huge projects that I had crazy ideas for in my head, like I couldn't just do it on my own. So I realized that, you know, I needed to create some kind of a organization. So that was 2015. And so I had that idea from then. And we were doing projects and things like that. And then it wasn't until 2018 that we actually were able to register it as a actual 501c3. So luckily we had, you know, Root Strong registered as an official nonprofit the year before we built the library. So by the time we built the library, we were already 1 year in to being a nonprofit. but 5 years into like, actually doing projects and service and all those different things.
And then were you able to like get people to help you and join in the organization, just so when you do start up a project, you would have people behind you?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we announced that our goal was to build these libraries, it was really awesome because we had already kind of somewhat established ourselves with having done like hurricane relief drives, and also we did the Little Free Library just the year before. When we finally announced that we were doing the actual library, it was really awesome because, and I think it has everything to do with the fact that I was still at Wayne State, and Mark as well. Like, shout out to Anne, because Anne is amazing. She was on the Poise board at Wayne State, and Poise is a fashion with a purpose kind of organization at Wayne State that puts on these annual fashion shows and gives back to an outreach program or cause. And so it just so happened that they decided to choose Rootstrong as their cause of choice for the year, their charity of choice for that year. And so for the 2019 fashion show, they, all the proceeds and donations all went to Rootstrong. So that was really, really helpful for making the vision come to life. And then also I had in 2018, when I told I was a research assistant at the time. So back then I had told my research PI that I was planning on going to Jamaica, and luckily she was always really interested in like the work I was doing outside of just her lab, which I'm really grateful for. And she, was really supportive of just, supporting the idea of building a library. So she had her Girl Scout troop actually collect like hundreds of books to donate to Rootstrong. So that went a really long way. So we were able to like kind of get different forms of support from different places, in addition to kind of having a small, close-knit Jamaican community here, people who want, understand what it's like to be here in this country and who want to give back to their, these small communities that are still struggling. And so we had, little bits of support from different places.
That's amazing. Like I'm sure like if like just that idea that you want to empower, I think that's such a great idea, like empowering youth, because it all starts from when you're young. Like if you have the resources, then it can kind of drive you for the rest of your life. And then
that's so true.
Yeah. And I found that like, I always used to think like, yeah, grade school doesn't matter. But when I got to high school, I was like, those foundations were built on grade school. And when I got to uni,
absolutely,
was built on high school. And it all kind of like, if you didn't have that, even like, I don't know, 1st grade to 5th grade education, you can't build on anything else for the rest of your life. So,
exactly.
Yeah. And then for, you mentioned you did hurricane relief. So before the libraries, the smaller and the larger library, what did you get to do with Rootstrong?
So we were really focusing on kind of like immediate need kind of things. So at the time, because Rootstrong didn't become an official nonprofit until 2018, we were really just focused on kind of doing what we can when we see there being a need. So we saw that, back in, I think it was 2017, where those huge hurricanes, Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Maria, and I think Hurricane Harvey happened around the same time. And that was like in the fall of 2017. We saw how badly, like, the Caribbean was affected, but not many people were talking about it. So, little smaller islands in, I think it's called the Lesser Antilles. So like, that's like the easternmost islands of the Caribbean. They're a lot smaller, but, they don't necessarily receive all the media attention that, bigger islands would receive. And so we really wanted to make sure that they're getting access to, relief and things like that. And so we were able to collect a lot of donations, particularly for the islands of Barbuda and Dominica and all these smaller islands in the Caribbean. And that was really helpful. We had the support of a local Jamaican restaurant called the Jamaican Pot on 8 Mile. Really good food. You guys should check it out. But yeah, they were able to help us kind of bring all of these donations together for that cause. So yeah.
Then how did they get it out to people? Like, did they have connections back on, like, people on those islands who they could trust to, like, or did they?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So another big thing was also the use of Canada, because we're so close to Canada. We have connections here who are actually from those islands. So there's a West Caribbean community here of the different islands, and they have had a connection to a airline in Canada that was actually for free shipping these donations to these islands that needed it the most. And so that was really great to be able to have that connection and connect to another country, Canada, to bring this vision to life.
Whenever I think of like hurricane or some natural disaster, something happened, it's like, oh, let's donate our money. But you literally like donated like the things they needed, right? Like what was included in the donations?
So we had a lot of non-perishable food items, so canned goods, things like that. And we also had a lot of like medical supplies as well. We didn't want, to get clothes because, a part of doing nonprofit work, you kind of learn along the way of, what is it that the people really need. And so I kind of, realized that we don't really want to get clothes, because a lot of times with clothes, it kind of just piles up and it doesn't actually go to people that need it. But with non-perishable food items, with things like medical emergency kits, things like that, those were things that we tried our best to collect those kind of things.
I mentioned that you had a connection, right? People back on those islands, were you corresponding with them? So they were like, this is what we need the most, like send these things over first kind of thing? Okay.
Right. So also with that, the actual government of some of these islands were able to put out like an actual list of things that they needed the most. So that was really helpful to go by exactly what, the people on the ground were saying they really needed. So we really used like what the government, put out that they needed. And we also went by some of the people here who have family members living on those islands who were able to say, speak for their own communities to say what they needed. We were able to use that as a resource as well.
Wow. And so when the airlines like delivered these items, you had people there to take them and distribute them out?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. And then it kind of, I guess, that started with that. Then it went to the smaller library. Then you actually like built a whole library. That's amazing. Where do you see this organization going in the next like 5 to 10 years?
Oh, that's a great question. I would love to see Rootstrong doing not just work in Jamaica, because, a lot of people oftentimes think that it's just for Jamaica. And we started in Jamaica because that's where I saw the immediate need in terms of like where my people come from, I guess. Even though I was born here, raised here in America, I always feel like that's such an important thing to always give back to where you're, the places that made you who you are. So my goal is to really see it not only do work in the Caribbean, but also here in Detroit, because Detroit very much so is a part of who I am, and makes, it's just as important as Jamaica. My family definitely would not have been here without this city. So I definitely want to make sure that, especially Black and brown kids have access to things that, access to things that will help them succeed in the most, in the best ways possible. So that's one thing. And I'd also love to see just it being more of a community oriented nonprofit, because one of the things that I love the most about everything we've done so far is that we've never done any of the work we've done on our own. It's never just been, like people who actually are volunteers of Rootstrong. It's always been a community thing. So when we went to Jamaica, we had I think it was about 50-50, like it was half of us came from America to come and build this library, but also like an overwhelming majority were from the very community wanting to help and build this library for their community, for their kids. So I really want to see this become something that really is a community effort that grows because it's birthed out of the community.
And the fact that like you had like different people, different parts of the community like contributing, all the proceeds from Poise and all the different contributions you had to be able to go and build the school. Then you had so many people like getting together to donate the books, to donate get this, like you needed bricks and like you needed stuff to build the school, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Have everything there to do that. So
yeah, so it was already, so the structure was already there, but if you saw the before and after pictures, there were, I think they had a really huge termite problem. So a lot of what was inside the structure was there, it was fine, but a lot of like the internal structures were kind of like eaten away, and deteriorated and everything. So we really did have to build everything kind of from the ground up in terms of like renovating the spaces and, you know, building shelves, repainting things, you know, recorking things and kind of smoothing out the ceiling, fixing the roof and all these different things. So it was definitely something where the infrastructure was there, the skeleton of it was there, but we had to do a lot of building everything from the ground up in a way.
Oh, and then how did you get the paint, the supplies? Like, what's the nearest city? Because the only city I know in Jamaica is like Kingston.
And that's exactly where we went. So, yeah. So Kingston is about 45 minutes away from Glengoff. So, you know what? Actually, I think I have a map somewhere. I won't even get it.
Okay.
It doesn't even matter. I forgot this is a podcast, not a video. Yeah, it's about 45 minutes away from Kingston. So Kingston is the nearest you can buy, you know, larger amounts of paint, have more of a variety. You have smaller little mom and pop shops in country in Glengoff, where owned by community people in the community who sell like maybe a few paint cans and things like that. But if you want the bigger variety of all these different supplies, you have to go to Kingston. So that's what we did. And a lot of times we had to, you know, kind of take multiple trips up and down the mountain, you know, bringing these different supplies up. So yeah, that was definitely the place for us to go.
Come into play.
Yeah, so Glengoff is actually in a mountain, so it's not. Yeah, so it's like 45 minutes up. Oh yeah. So and the thing about Glengoff, which is so unique to just Glengoff, but I don't think just Glengoff, but it's definitely unique to, you know, that region, is that the roads, they start off as, you know, very wide, and, you know, everyone has enough space to drive on, you know, either side. And in Jamaica, they drive on the left side. So it's interesting because as you get closer to Glengoff, going up the mountain, the higher you get, the more narrow the roads get. So it's a lot more, you know, dangerous, a little bit more nerve-wracking to go up the mountain. But at this point, I've kind of gotten used to it, having gone up there so many times. But I remember bringing volunteers who, you know, came on the trip with us last year, and it was their first time experiencing going up such a steep mountain, but also with such narrow roads. And, you know, Jamaicans drive however they want to drive sometimes. So that was really interesting. It was really fun to be able to kind of experience that alongside people who had never been to Jamaica at all. So that was really cool. I feel like if you were to ever go to Jamaica, it would be right up your alley, because there's like, I don't know if you've heard of Rastafarians. So like Bob Marley, those kind of people with the dreads and the, you know, so they have actually, there's a huge part of Jamaican culture where Rastafarians are very into like clean eating, veganism, and kind of just like living very clean. Like they're very cognizant of what they put into their body, but it's also a part of their kind of spiritual beliefs as well. But it's kind of become a manufactured like kind of thing that, you know, America, the whole world kind of like looks at Jamaica and is like, oh, Rastafarianism, Bob Marley, and they just associate Bob Marley with this without actually understanding like why Rastafarianism is what it is and what they really believe in. But I feel like that would be like really awesome for you to experience.
Where would I run into that kind of culture in Jamaica?
They actually have a lot of, in terms of restaurants, they have like a lot of restaurants that are strictly Rastafari. And they call it in Jamaica, instead of saying vegan, they call it Ital, which is like the American way of saying it, but it's like in the Jamaican way of saying it's Ital, eating, which is like just clean eating. They don't eat meat, they don't eat any of these things, and they kind of just live off of a lot of plants, a lot of herbs, a lot of different things. And it's actually really, really interesting. I don't have anyone in my family who's Rastafarian, but it's an interesting thing to learn about and really learn about why they believe what they believe.
Interesting. Yeah. Was Bob Marley Rastafarian?
Yeah, so he was raised in a household that was Christian, but as he got older, kind of Rastafarianism during that time really became, it was kind of an underground kind of thing, because a lot of Jamaicans didn't want to accept kind of this Rastafarian movement of really just, you know, Black people really pushing for their African heritage. And Jamaica was newly independent. You know, they didn't want to all of a sudden take on this like really African heritage, which is problematic back then. You know, colonization did a lot of messed up stuff. But at that time, there was kind of a revolution in terms of music. And Bob Marley obviously was one of the biggest people we know in terms of that. And Rastafarianism kind of grew with the reggae movement. And so he kind of, around the 60s, he kind of converted to Rastafarianism, cut out like all kinds of meat, only strictly at, you know, a vegan, and would make all kinds of like, I went to his house is now a museum in Jamaica, and I actually visited twice now. And they still have his kitchen kind of like perfectly there. And he made like smoothies every day and like all of these different things, kind of living off the land, especially because Jamaica has so many, like so rich in terms of like growing things and different fruits and stuff. So that's how a lot of the Rastafarians live. Yeah.
What are some of the main exports of Jamaica?
So back in the day, it was, I don't know what it really is now. I know that bauxite, which is a natural resource, that's a huge thing still in Jamaica. But I'm not 100% sure of what's the biggest things right now, other than bauxite, which is a natural resource again, and also coffee. So like Blue Mountain coffee, that's like a huge thing as well. And then back in the day during slavery and things like that, and up until even, you know, like in the 60s, 70s and onward, it was a lot of bananas, sugar, all those different things.
What is bauxite?
That's a great question. I actually don't know 100%. I can, you know, like when I'm driving in Jamaica, I can like, oh, that's a bauxite like site that they're digging up. I'm not 100% sure. I can quickly Google it.
I'm gonna Google it. Jamaican bauxite is mainly gibbsitic. I don't even know what that means, but some amount of bohemite is also, I don't even know what that is, isn't most present. The average grade of bauxite mined is, okay, it looks like a rock.
Yeah, it looks like it's used for aluminum. That's what it looks like it's used for.
It's the ore from which aluminum is made.
So there we go, aluminum.
Aluminum is an element on the period.
Exactly.
Bauxite is the ore. Shouldn't bauxite be an element?
That's a great question, actually.
Interesting. I don't know. After mining, most of the bauxite is carried to alumina plants, where it is refined into alumina. Okay, I guess maybe it's not like pure. When you make like a mix of metals, alloy. Maybe it's like the mix of aluminums. It uses bauxite. Interesting.
That's what it looks like. Yeah.
So with Root Strong, how can people join? Like if they want to join, to my listeners, I will leave a link in the description below to her website. But Lindsay, for people who want to help out and join the organization, how can they do that?
So the biggest way that we communicate with people is through our Instagram. So any of our new projects that are coming up, we really do through Instagram, but also a really key way to make sure that you're in the loop with everything. For those moments that we're, you know, a little bit more silent on Instagram, definitely go to our website, rootstrong.org, and you will find a little join tab, and you can sign up for our newsletter, and there you'll always be in the loop with everything that we're doing. Not just projects abroad, but also projects here. And yeah.
I mean, even in Detroit, there's so many like underprivileged areas where they don't even have proper access to things.
Yeah. And I think that's like a huge thing when it comes to kind of like where Detroit is going. Like, yes, we're, you know, if you ask like people who've been here for like, you know, within the past 10 years, how Detroit has changed, it's changed tremendously. And a lot of that has been gentrification. So like you have these parts of Detroit, especially downtown, that are, you know, they're a lot more renovated, I guess you could say, but at the expense of kind of moving out and kicking out really a lot of the original residents who were there. So that kind of like, I've noticed that a lot in, you know, downtown, midtown area, you have that kind of thing. And then as you venture outwards, you know, you have still these areas that need the access to resources that are being poured into, you know, midtown and downtown areas. So yeah, it's definitely kind of a disparity gap in that sense.
Yeah, didn't Wayne State make tuition free for if you like went to a high school in Detroit?
I did see that. I think that was like within the past year they did that.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw that recently too.
That was awesome.
And
yeah, that definitely opens doors for a lot of young people.
Yeah.
Like that's really an amazing thing that they're doing for the community, especially being like the biggest university in Detroit. Like being able to open those doors for so many young people in DPS school systems who may not have ever thought of college before, having that immediate access now to getting that college degree and everything is amazing.
So now moving forward to your book. So today is the release date for Fly Dr. Fly, her children's book, which I don't know the premise of this book, so I'll let you take it away and explain that.
Okay, so Fly Dr. Fly is basically a book that I wrote back when I wrote the script of it back when I was a freshman in college. So it was my second semester of college. I was on spring break. A lot of fun at home, just doing absolutely nothing. But I was really thinking about the fact that, it can be a really lonely journey especially being a Black pre-med student. You don't see many people that look like you in your classes, especially going to a predominantly white institution. And so I really wanted to make sure that I had this idea just to write a book for children to kind of inspire them to pursue the medical field, particularly as doctors. The medical field is, it's so diverse. There's so many different jobs, so many different things that young people can aspire to be. But I feel like there's a lot of times kind of this barrier that it still kind of is a gap for a lot of young people in seeing themselves as physicians, as doctors. And so I wanted to write a book that kind of inspires young people to pursue the medical field. The story really is about a little boy named PJ, which is short for my dad's name. The whole story is kind of based off of my dad. It's like an imaginative retelling of one of his first introductions to medicine. And so he has always been really inspiring for me, being able to see someone in my household who is a doctor. And so, I just thought of, there's so many young people who don't have that privilege that I have in being able to see an actual physician, a Black physician in their household. And so I wanted to create something that any child could have and really just see Black doctors, that is possible and that you can do anything. It doesn't matter where you come from, who you are. And the reason why it's called Fly Dr. Fly is kind of a play on words and play. So the national bird of Jamaica is the doctor bird, which is a really beautiful hummingbird. And it's called the doctor bird. That's what it's called. So it's a hummingbird in Jamaica that is indigenous to just Jamaica. It's really a beautiful bird. It's like green, it's like emerald green with like, black, and it has these really two long tails. And so it's
bird in my title because I love birds. I'm gonna
yeah. So it's that's the national bird of Jamaica. And so my dad had this story growing up that one day he was walking to this, I think he was walking with his mom to church or something, and he was walking and he saw this injured bird. And he really wanted to help it. He didn't because, obviously his mom is there. She's not going to let him just help this bird or whatever. And so he saw this bird that was injured, and he was hoping that when he came back home, that it would still be there, that he would be able to, like, I don't know what he was planning to do to help it or whatever. Yeah. But that kind of story, he kind of always told us, me and my sister, as his story of kind of having that intrigue into like science and medicine. And it's really interesting to me because I feel like inspiration for doing anything can come from anywhere. And for him, he had never seen, he didn't have any doctors in his family. His mother, my grandmother, she wasn't able to finish high school or college, and so she stopped at about the 8th grade, just because of lack of access. So he didn't really have anyone in his family to kind of show him that those things were possible. So then when he was able to come here to America, he kind of had a little bit more exposure into wanting to pursue medicine. So that was kind of the storyline in a way to help me kind of like form this little children's book of this little boy who helps a doctor bird who's injured. And that becomes his way of being inspired to pursue medicine. He's introduced to, local doctors in his community who are doing great things. And and what really important thing for me was, even though the main character is a boy, I wanted the person to inspire him, the doctor to inspire him, to be a woman, because I feel like, you know, it's really important to make sure that young girls know as well that you can be a doctor, you can be, you know, all these predominantly male occupations, positions that the world has told us are, you know, strictly for men, that women can do it too, and that equally, you know, young boys can be inspired by, you know, a woman, and see a woman in a certain position and be like, wow, I want to do that one day. So that was kind of like the background behind this entire story.
That's amazing. So the story is based off your dad.
Yes.
And then you wrote the script like a couple of years ago, just out of like, was it just random? You're like, oh, I will publish this one day, or was it just like, oh, I'm just gonna write a story for the fun of it because I'm home during spring break?
Yeah, so I think, I honestly don't remember if it was like, I don't think it was spontaneous, but I think I always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to write a book one day. I just figured, you know what, like, I think having experienced my first year of college and going through the first, you know, few pre-med classes, I kind of felt that isolation of being one of a handful of maybe, you know, Black students in my pre-med courses. And I really just felt like, you know, what can I do to inspire myself, but also hopefully inspire kids who come after me. So I was hoping to publish the book that year, which was 2016. That didn't end up happening, but I feel like everything happens in due time, because I feel like now, you know, had I done that 4 years ago, I don't think the book would have been exactly what I'm proud of it to be today, with all the resources. So I made sure, like, even right now, the book has gone through so many different revisions over the years, and as it is now, it has, you know, resources at the end of the book to kind of not only tell a story, but also give kids resources and their parents resources on how do you become a doctor. You know, like, this is a great story, but what are the steps to actually getting there? What are the different kinds of doctors? And I also included, you know, some Black history heroes of medicine that, you know, oftentimes we don't talk about, and, you know, have transformed the medical field. So kids can know that, you know, this isn't new. You know, you can do these things because so many people have come before you and have kind of paved this path for you. So, yeah.
So then, like, when you said it underwent so many revisions, like, how long did it take you, like, after you had the first draft, how long did it take you to finish the story as the final draft?
So I remember writing the first draft all at once. So I had basically written the story from start to finish all at once. And then over the years, like, maybe, like, there might have been like a few revisions, like 4 or 5 revisions, like, throughout this entire 4-year process. The most recent revision being like in maybe January, February of this year. And that's when I really started to think about, like, okay, well, this is a great story, but do I want to add, like, what else can I add that can be more useful in terms of resources? And so that, I would say the revision process really took 4 years if we're adding up all that time, because it did take about 4 to 5 different scripts, I guess, of the original version.
How did it go from being written, like, on your desk to getting to a publishing house? Because that's a big step.
Yeah, so it first started, so I wrote the story, the first script, and then I had my family read it. So they're kind of like the guinea pigs of reading everything. And then I didn't want to just solely, I wanted them to tell me, like, straight up, like, is this a good story? Or is, like, don't sugarcoat it because I'm your daughter, because I'm your sister, like, you know, just, you know, tell me what it is. And they enjoyed it, but I didn't want that to be the only, like, you know, feedback I got. So I have some younger cousins, and, you know, kids do not sugarcoat anything. They will tell you straight up if they like it or not. And so I was like, you know what, this is yeah. So I made sure that I had, like, you know, my younger cousins read it and tell me what they thought about it, and just hear their feedback, what feedback they could give on it. So I had, like, my cousins were at the time were about 7 and 8, so that was, like, around the age group that I really wanted to make sure the book was getting to. So I had them read it. They enjoyed it. They're from 2 totally different backgrounds. So you know, you have, like, one from, you know, Jamaica and one from Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. 2 totally different backgrounds, 2 totally different access to resources. So I thought it was good that I had that kind of feedback from, you know, 2 different kids with totally different backgrounds. And then from there, I just went into illustrating because I wrote the book, but me and my dad illustrated the book together. And my dad is a lot better in terms of drawing than me. I'm okay. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Are you and your dad or is your dad does he have an artistic background?
Oh, okay. My dad is amazing at drawing. He's amazing at drawing. I can't even touch his drawing skills. That's all he did. Him growing up, he did a lot of drawing and art. And when he came here, that was something that he took up a lot of doing. And especially in school, he took a lot of art classes that kind of fed his passion of creating art and things like that. And he won some awards and all those great things. We still have so many of those little old art pieces that he did back in the day. So yeah, he's definitely really, really good at those things. Me, on the other hand, I'm good at drawing. I'm good at, I used to paint. I'm better at painting. In my family, I'm much better at painting than I am at actually drawing and drawing these realistic, amazing pictures that could pass as photos. That's more of my dad's style. I'm more of the, I can draw, but not like he can. So yeah, we did it together, and I really wanted to make sure that it was illustrated by someone who knows what Jamaica looks like, because it does take place in Jamaica.
And it's his life story. So
yeah, so I thought there's so many talented illustrators in our community, but I wanted it to be drawn with the understanding of what Jamaica looks like, right, and all the little nuances of what makes Jamaica Jamaica. So he was really great at being able to translate that into the pictures. And with me, he's not the person who uses digital illustrating tools. So I was the person who did more of the digital illustrating. He would draw them on actual paper, and then I would scan them in and actually illustrate those very pictures on there's a great app called Procreate on the iPad. So I use that to illustrate all of these different things.
Because I find definitely drawing, I would say the most authentic is always drawing by hand.
Right.
Because you just can't get that with a graphic software.
Exactly.
Right.
And then from there, it was just so much easier, especially being able to do it digitally, being able to take that and then because I formatted the book on my own. So I had to make sure everything is in the right dimensions with the right, color profile, all these different things to put the book together. And then from there, we just got it printed, and luckily we had a template of we knew we wanted to make it 8.5 by 8.5. So we made sure to draw the images a little bit larger than that, so that when you make an image that's way too small for the actual size you're trying to print it at, it ends up kind of making the image more blurry. Yeah, and all pixelated, and that's not what we wanted. So we made sure to actually draw the pictures on a bigger scale than what we actually wanted, so that when we do minimize it, it was a lot clearer, and just we could kind of play around with it in terms of the sizing.
But how did you reach out to a publishing house, and which publishing house did you end up publishing the book through?
So I didn't do the traditional route of using a publishing house in terms of Scholastic Press and Simon and Schuster and all these big publishing houses. One, because at the time, I was a college student, don't have that kind of money to kind of go on that path. And also, when it comes to publishing that traditional way, a lot of times you have to have an agent to even introduce your book to these publishing houses. And then there's also the other side of the coin, where it's a lot of times Black authors and stories about Black characters tend to not be as openly received by these larger publishing houses. So from the very beginning, when I first wrote the book back in 2016, I knew I wanted to do it on my own independently. So at first I used Amazon KDP, which at the time was called Create Space. And I was going to go through them, but I didn't like the option that they didn't have hardcover books. And I really wanted to make sure it was a hardcover book, that it was sturdy, that it could last a long time. So I ended up going with this company called Book Baby, and they can widely distribute your books and all of these great things. I didn't choose that option. I actually just ended up printing it just, for my own, being able to sell it through my own website. And then eventually, hopefully, I'll get to that point where I can put it on Amazon and make it more accessible. And I really wanted to make sure that I was able to kind of personalize the books when I do ship them out. Being able to wrap them and put thank you cards and sign the books and all those things. Those are things that I wouldn't have been able to do had I put it through like Amazon or like some other website. So I really wanted to make sure that for the first batch at least, that I would sell them strictly through my website.
Are you just printing
right
from your home printer and you're able to bind it together? Like, how are you binding the book?
So no, actually BookBaby does print the book. So like I'll order like 500 books or so from the company to actually print it. And then from there, I'll sell it on my own. I'll package it and ship it and all those different things on my own. But they're responsible for printing. But at home, I kind of have a bit of a factory, I guess. I'm kind of like looking around because like this is kind of where I've been working for these past like few weeks. But I'll make like the stickers and everything at home. All the different things I'll make to put into the package and everything.
Okay. BookBaby you didn't want them to distribute the books for you, but they're just shipping it to you so you can handle that part. Okay.
Right. And I'm not sure if I'll continue with BookBaby. I think I'll kind of look around and see, what other options there are in terms of printing, just because they are a little bit expensive. So I think that I'll probably in this meantime, while I still have these books, kind of look around and see what other options there might be, so I can kind of plan ahead and see what I can do with hopefully the next step.
Would
Go
you
ahead.
ever consider like doing it straight from your house, like buying the printer for it, the buying materials?
I don't think I would, just because I feel like I really am picky about like making sure everything is like, like every book is identical to one another pretty much. And also I don't know what the next 2 to 3 years looks like. I would love to start medical school in the fall of next year. So I don't want to take on such a big undertaking and then not be able to like continue it and spend so much money on like buying the printer and all the materials and stuff and not be able to carry it on, for like next year or
Maybe there's a local, like smaller alternative company in Detroit or something that you can find, but I'm sure there are others.
Yeah, honestly, that would be great if there was, and that would be a great way to like support, like a smaller business here.
With this book, since today is the release date, you had like pre-orders coming in on your website before this?
Yes, so pre-orders began on June 26th and just ended yesterday. So I was honestly like the support that came from just me announcing it, because I was so nervous, to be honest. I was extremely nervous to even announce it because I'd announced it at first back in March on National Doctors Day, which was March 30th, that I would be releasing my book later on in the year. And then June 26th was the actual day that pre-orders began. And because I hadn't been using social media very often up until that point, I was a little nervous to even go about like, hey guys, the book is available for pre-order. But it was a really overwhelmingly positive response. And I was really excited to see people not only here in the US, but also in Jamaica, in England, sharing the book. And that means so much to me, even just seeing, even if you don't purchase a book, just sharing it, that goes such a long way. So that was really amazing to be able to experience that.
Can anyone just place an order on your website?
Oh no, at this point now, so when people were pre-ordering, they weren't receiving the books, they were just placing that order, and then all of those pre-orders are being received this week. Some people have already begun to receive theirs. So right now, as you purchase, literally I'm packaging and, printing off, all of the necessary stuff to go into your package and shipping it off the next day or within 1 to 3 days. So as soon as you place an order, I'm straight to work, working on it. And you can buy the book on my website, lindsayarcher.com. Only difference is my name is not spelled with an I, it's spelled with a Y. So LYNDSAY, archer.com. And you can buy the book right from there.
Cool. Okay, guys, I'm going to put a link to her website below. Go and support her. Do you ship nationwide, worldwide, or only local? How does it work?
Yeah, we ship internationally. Now, we haven't had any international orders yet. So I would honestly, if anyone's planning on buying internationally, the shop is set up to ship internationally. But if there's any problems with that kind of shipping, just definitely make sure to reach out to me either by email, by social media, whatever, and I'll make sure that like it works out for you.
Where do you see, like, do you see yourself writing any more books? Like maybe make a series or anything like that?
I'm not sure about a series, but I definitely love to write like more children's books and with different kinds of characters. Like with, this was based off of my dad, so obviously a male character, a male lead. But I'd love to write more books with female characters, women characters, so like young girls can immediately see themselves in a book. This book does feature that kind of representation as well, not just male representation, not just inspiring young boys to pursue medicine, but also young girls. But I'd love to write more books. Hopefully, as I kind of see more things and kind of work more with children in terms of with Root Strong, hopefully I'll be able to see what kind of stories they enjoy and what kind of things might inspire them, and hopefully I can work to bring those things to life through a book. So yeah.
Okay. I guess I just had a couple more questions. So aside from like Root Strong and the library and the book, like with medical school, what field of medicine do you want to get into?
I'd love to be a pediatrician. I used to always say that I wanted to be like a neurosurgeon or a cardiovascular surgeon, and that was like my dream, like for the longest time when I was like 12 all the way up through high school. But I think with one of the greatest things that Root Strong has done for me, and in addition to being a research assistant at Wayne State, kind of introduced me to the importance of really advocating for kids. And so that's definitely something that I think I'm leaning a little bit more towards. I've kind of had like two major ones kind of competing, either being a pediatrician or pursuing like OBGYN. But I think my heart really is in like serving kids. So.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, some people don't know like which field of medicine they want to get into at this point, but that's awesome that you're like so passionate about it and you're like, this is what I want. So. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for like sharing your journey. And I got so much out of it. I hope you guys did as well. And is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners?
Honestly, okay. So I did go on a brief trip over the weekend. And noticed a lot of people weren't wearing masks or on the western coast of Michigan. So definitely, especially during this time, I know it's warm, I know it's hot outside, I know that summertime is like here, but do make sure to wear your mask, stay safe, like take care of yourself and take care of other people. And honestly, go after every single thing that you dream of, because I feel like every single person has a very specific purpose with their lives, and it's something that what you're destined to do is something that nobody else can replicate. So always, just believe in yourself and always go after those dreams no matter what.
Very true. Very true. Well, thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.
All right. Bye. Have a great evening.
Too.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning into today's episode, and we'll see you next time.